Alright, ebusia for me ma obi bia kwa abasonko eba possible TV GH. Meeting Edifans Achu aka possible MD kwan so and then they can win your channel is for YouTube best also be burn no share videos no amana pay we share no like or comment or subscribe we no share content no and also recommend the channel no amoni e bi so nya videos ni bi ahwe aha no mama ya we say anytime any day be din shemu e o platform we so na just o man kon Ghana mun sem e na me madam score akohwe bia me de bi e ba be so mo on that note no me catch say audio na drop na mu ohie pa me pese mese wadaje no nsa edan sai me ni die kwan so maye nyina yenko nyenko tie seme audio.
Yes, so that's very, very serious. Now, for those of you who don't know the rest of the Dormahene is a good guy. I met him at the Sunyani airport the other day, and I made obeisance to him. Okay, he's a good guy. Nothing to do with his personality, but he's a high court judge. Those who don't know, Dormahene is a high court judge. He presided over one of the cases of our friend Mikael, the guy who did the Fix the Country. What's his name? Oliver Backup, Boma, the guy was plenty names. He's my friend, but he has plenty names. Oliver. But Dormahene was a high court judge in that matter. One of those cases. Dormahene is a high court judge. And look at what he's saying. He's criticizing a Supreme Court decision publicly as a high court judge. That is wrong. It will never happen in Westminster. A high court judge in England cannot, should not, will never ever publicly criticize the decision of the House of Lords. That if he were on the Supreme Court, he would have ruled the other way. Which other way? This is bad. It cannot happen. It shouldn't take place. What is the meaning of this? Is it partisan? Is it political? Is it sentimental? We are destroying what we have built. A high court judge sits as a high court judge and delivers his rulings. He is also a chief. He can address his people, but he cannot criticize the Supreme Court publicly. I can criticize the Supreme Court. I'm not a judge. I'm a commentator. Kukubaku can criticize the Supreme Court. He's a commentator. He can do it after the case. Once the case is out, anybody can criticize. But a high court judge cannot publicly say that, oh, the Supreme Court ruled. If I want the Supreme Court, I'll rule differently. That's very dangerous, and we should not accept it. And what is he saying? That somebody was in Canada, and what is he saying? He said, oh yeah, baby, I watch him. Oh, I don't understand what he's saying. Somebody was in Canada. He knows the rules of running for parliament in Ghana. He filled a form that asked him a question. He answered the question wrongly. He answered the question untruthfully. That's the matter. Why are we sugarcoating it? Why are we decorating it? The guy took a form. He was asked, are you Paul Adomochi? He said, no. But it turns out he's Paul Adomochi. What else should we do about this? Why are we using politics to sugarcoat things? All of you members of parliament, 275 members of parliament, did you not fill that same form? Why is it that all of you are not being prosecuted by Godfrey Dame? You should ask yourself that question, members of parliament. Why is it that all of you are not being prosecuted? Did you not all answer that question on the Electoral Commission's form? Fifi Kwete answered it before. Has he ever been prosecuted? J. Mensah Bones was answered that question. Has he been prosecuted? Adamu Sakande answered that question. Was he prosecuted? Yes, he was. Judge Kwesi answered that question. Is he being prosecuted? Yes, he is being prosecuted. Why must the prosecution stop? Because he won a by-election. So the goat stealer, he didn't win any by-election. He stole a goat. He's in for 5 years. Ato Forsen is not speaking for the goat stealer. Ato Forsen is not speaking for the ordinary people who are in the courts every day being prosecuted. Recently, when people are celebrating their birthdays, they go to the court to free those on remand, to free those who are owing 2 cedis, 100 cedis, 5 cedis, and they are in for 8 years. We see that in the social media all the time. The minority leader has said nothing about it. But the minority leader says, don't prosecute Judge Kwesi, who has answered the question wrong and put himself in the line of the prosecution so clearly. What are we talking about in Ghana? What is the meaning of this? Let's go to what Sam Okudzeto thinks about the matter. And this is how he starts. Uncle Sam says, it is wrong. It is repugnant. It is senseless. Tell me you don't agree with Uncle Sam. Tell me you don't agree with Sam Okudzeto. He says it is wrong. it is repugnant, it is senseless for a sitting High Court judge to stand on a public platform and make an utterance of this nature. This is my view. If I were to be sitting in that disciplinary committee on the Judicial Council, I would have asked him to resign or ask that he be sacked as a judge. This is what I would have done. But what is the meaning of this? Why do we think that we have some rules to tie politicians and we have to let them behave the way we want them to behave? The president must fall in line. Where did this come from? Where did this come from? Please, those of you who know the Dormahene, tell him that he must retract that statement. He must, and we're going to remind him, he must retract his criticism of the Supreme Court. I should say it again. He must retract his public criticism of the Supreme Court. He can keep his advice to the Attorney General. He can raise the advice to the Attorney General privately. He's a High Court judge. He works with the Attorney General in the same industry. He can write to the Attorney General. The learned Attorney General, this is my view of the matter. I think he may not be the only one to have advised the Attorney General to enter a nullity procedure, but that's okay. You can give him that advice. But you can't say what the Supreme Court did was wrong. What? How can a High Court judge even think of saying that? In any case, what did the Supreme Court do that was wrong? The Supreme Court was merely affirming a decision of the High Court. The same High Court that he sits. His colleague judge is the one who gave the original ruling. But it is a mathematical ruling. It cannot be wrong. On so and so date, you told the document that you are a citizen of Ghana only. The evidence is that it is untrue. Canada knows it. Ghana knows it. That on that date when you filled the form, the process had not been completed. Why didn't you tell the Electoral Commission that my process had not been completed? If he had told the Electoral Commission that, which would have been the truth, his form would have been denied. Because to file for the election, you need to be Ghanaian only. 137 members of the parliament on the NDC side, they all filled that form. Why are they not all being prosecuted? They should ask themselves that question. 137 members of parliament, including the famous Ato Forson, our good minority leader. He's a good man, Ato Forson. He's a good man. No doubt about that. He's a good man. He's a clever man. I believe so. But Ato Forson must look at this. He and the 136 people, they all filled that form. Why hasn't Godfrey Dame taken out a prosecution against them in the court? Why is Dame prosecuting Judge Kwesi only? That must tell them something. Because Judge Kwesi's outcome in the truthfulness of his disclosure had a deficit. That's why he's being prosecuted. There was untruth in his disclosure. We want our children to be learning that you can fill a form and disclose untruth, and then you can showboat around the place. You are in parliament, you are showboating. Hey, we won't allow it. That's mob rule. That's banditry. That's not democracy. It's banditry. We don't want that. It's mob rule. We don't want that. We don't want life to be nasty, booties, and short. We don't want that. Life ought not to be nasty, booties, and short in a democracy. You fill a form wrong, you have to deal with it. What is this blackmail, threatening all over the place? Stop the prosecution of Collins Dowda. Stop the prosecution of Judge Kwesi. Stop the prosecution of Ato Forson. Otherwise, we won't come to parliament again. Dana Bodakwi was prosecuted. He was a sitting member of parliament. Richard Kwame Pepra was prosecuted. He was a minister of finance. Victor Salome was prosecuted. He was a minister of finance. Antonia Kotose was lined up for prosecution. He was a former minister of finance. May he rest in peace. Charles Reku Brobe. He was a chief executive of VRA and the chief executive of Ghana 50. They were lined up for prosecution. What is this? Why are we doing this? The goat stealer must go to jail. Ato Forson doesn't care about the goat stealer. Ato Forson cares about Judge Kwesi. Why? Judge Kwesi is a big man. And now we hear the chiefs of Asen North say that, hey, you can't prosecute our guy. You should leave him alone. When they were prosecuting some people, did any chief come and say you can't prosecute anybody? All the chiefs respect the law. They know that the prosecution does not mean that you go to prison. The prosecution means that there's a suggestion that you've done wrong and you can defend yourself. This is a democracy. Many people have successfully defended themselves. Kwesi Ahoy, he defended himself and got a submission of no case. Other people have got a submission of no case. You can defend yourself. This democracy we hold in trust for the future generations. Let's not destroy it. The democracy that we hold in trust for the future generations. Dormahene, Benkoto, ye paucho. Why? Don't destroy our democracy. Dormahene, ye paucho. Don't destroy our democracy. You are such an important person, a high court judge. A high court judge. Samakujeto says, it is wrong. It is repugnant. It is indeed senseless for a sitting high court judge to stand on a public platform and make utterances of that nature. This is my view of the matter. That's what Samakujeto says. It is very, very bad. And then the NDC people in parliament today says, yeah, we won't come to parliament because you are prosecuting. You can't build a democracy like that. My friend Sam George, he calls himself Jata. Sam George, didn't you fill the same form that Equation filled? Didn't you? Why has Attorney General not prosecuted you for it? The part where that says that, in fact, I'll get the form and I'll show you the question, viewers. On Thursday, I'll bring the form to the studio. I'll put it here. I'll show you the question and show you the answer that Equation gave. His answer was untruthful. It was a deceit of public officer. When we were setting up our criminal law, the law, at that time, nobody knew that equation, 1960. And they said, deceit of public officer, knowingly writing untruth to a public officer, this is what happens. It's been there since 1960. Today, they say it is that equation. He's a member of parliament. He came from Canada. So Obeboa, according to Dormahene, he came from Canada. So Obeboa. So Obeboa, so what? Obeboa, so what? Obeboa, so we should throw the laws away. Oh, Dormahene, I beg you. I beg you. I beg you. I beg you. This one, I beg. Benkoto, I beg you. Don't say that. You are Ohene. We love you. Don't ever say this again. Obeboa. Do you know how many people have come to Boa from America, Canada, Germany, Italy, all over the place? All the boggers who came in the 1980s, the people who built East Legon, they built Hacho, they built this, all of them. Do you know how many times they've come to Boa? And you say that Oba Canada, if Canada, Oba Sobe Boa, Oba Sobe Boa, he can do anything he likes because of a Boa. No, this is too low. Dormahene Benkoto, Pauchopa, Nana, Esreo. And I Yesreo, where the men can be. Men can say way view. Yesreo. The Attorney General has a stone heart. In spite of everything. I'm going to play an interview. Now, it's not just about Jachi Kwesi, eh? The Attorney General has also been very forthright on another matter, the Opuni case. A new judge said that he was going to start the trial afresh. People seemed excited about it. I don't even understand it. Anyway. He took a writ to the Court of Appeal, appealed against the decision. The Court of Appeal agrees with him. And now the Opuni trial will continue from where it left off. Because Mr. Opuni has lawyers to defend him. Mr. Opuni believes that he's not guilty. Some people believe him. Some people think he's guilty. The court will determine that. So I'm going to play this interview, and I have to give credit to Asase Radio. They conducted this interview. It's 8 minutes long.